Hey Math 30-2 and welcome to 1.4, the last one in this unit. So let's get started. What this one is going to be about, you can see right here that instead of only having two circles in our Venn diagram, we've just kind of added a third circle, and we have to kind of work through these puzzles. They really are just kind of puzzles that we gotta kind of figure out as we go. So the first one here says Kroner asked 100 adults whether they had studied French, Spanish, or Japanese in school. According to the Venn diagram, how many had studied? So we can just we're gonna work through just how to read this graph for number one. So how many studied Spanish? So Spanish is gonna be this entire circle, right? It's gonna be all of that entire thing. So you just need to add all those numbers together. Okay, so if you add everything together in this circle, you get 63. Okay, next one. How many had studied Spanish but not French? So Spanish was this circle, right? But not French. So we're just subtracting this part of the circle, right? The French part. So what we're left with is just, we'll get rid of that stuff. What we're left with is just 32 and 7, right? That's all we have left. That's this part of the circle. So 32 and 7, so this is 39. So now the next one, Japanese but not French. So just look at what's the Japanese circle. Well, that's this one, right? It's all of this, but not French. So not this stuff in here. So what we're left with is just 9 and 7. Those are the only two. So we have 16. Okay, French and Spanish. So French and Spanish is where they overlap, where they're both of them together. So that's that one, French and Spanish. So that's going to be 20 and 4, so 24. French or Spanish. So now remember, French or Spanish is the entire thing. Saying French or Spanish. So now we need to go through and just add up all those numbers. So 23, 20, 32, 5, 4, and 7. Okay, so that's going to be 91. Okay, French and Spanish, but not Japanese. So French and Spanish, so that would be this one, like we already figured, that was 24, but not Japanese. So all we're left with is just this one, so that's just 20. Okay, moving on. Sarah conducted a survey of teen gaming preferences. Here are the results. So 20 teens played online games, so I'm just going to put like a online for that one. 20 teams played game console, so maybe I'll put console. And then the bottom one is they play games on their cell phone. Okay, so Sarah surveyed 31 teens. How can this be? So how is it that, we've got 20, 20, and 20? That adds up to 60. How is it that she only surveyed 31? Well, it's just because they share some, right? So, this 20 teens that play online games, that's this entire circle, right? So there's going to be some overlap there. There's going to be some that play online games and just a console, so like this part. There's going to be some that play all three, so in the middle. And there's going to be some that just do cell phone or just do console or whatever, right? So it's got to be mixed all up. So that's kind of how that works. So for this question, though, there is not enough information above to have one correct solution. There's many different solutions that you could do to solve this. So complete the Venn diagram below. Show one possible solution to Sarah's survey. I'm going to let you guys struggle with this one. All it needs to come out, all that needs to happen in the end is that you're going to have 31 people being surveyed, and you're going to have each of these circles adding to 20 because each of them are 20. So just make sure that happens. It's going to be a bit of trial and error. And one little hint before you do this one, you could have leftovers, right? You could have some people that didn't choose any that might be down in this spot. So that might be a little bit easier to have like your leftovers that don't play any of those three. Okay, so just a little hint there. Okay, so this one, Rachel surveyed grade 12 students about how they communicated with friends over the previous week. 66 called on a cell phone. So let's just label these things first before we can go. So I'm going to call this one cell phone. I'm going to call this one text. And the other one is like social network. So maybe call that like network or net. Okay. Now it's going to give you a bunch of info on these things. I mean, you kind of need to figure out what they all mean. A little bit of a hint here. If you're going through, it's going to be helpful if you can find the middle one first. That kind of, it just makes everything easier. So as I go through these, we can start at the beginning. Say 66 called on a cell phone. So that's going to be that whole circle. So just so we're aware. What you might want to do, like I was kind of showing some of you guys earlier, is make like a little thing on the side to remind you that this whole circle is 66. That just might come in handy later. Now, we could also, for texting, write in brackets there, like on the outside, that whole circle here is 76. 34 use the social networking site, so then if you wanted to, we could write down here 34. Just to kind of keep track of what each of those circles, actually the whole circle is. And now let's fill in as we know, so 56% called and texted. So they used a cell phone and they texted. So that's this area in the middle, right? That's all of this. That's not as good because it's telling us like two different spots here. So I know that that whole thing together is 56, but how much is up here and how much is down there? So let's just put that on pause for a minute and see if we can get some more info somewhere else. So 18% called and networked. So called and networked. That would be that whole thing. But again, that's like two of them. It's not as helpful. 19% texted and networked. So text and network, that's that one. Again, not as helpful. This last one is going to kind of fix our problem here. So it says 12% did all three. So this middle, I can start here and just write a 12. That's kind of our starting point. We're going to be able to work our way out. So now we can kind of go through really any of them. We can kind of go backwards through this thing. I'll start at this 19 one. So texted and networked. So that was this area here. So if I go 19 minus 12, I should get this, what's left there, right? So 19 minus 12, this is 7. Okay, and then we can go up to the next one maybe, go to 18. 18 called and networked. So cell phone and network, that was this one there, those two. So 18 minus 12 is 6. So I can fill that one in. Go one more up here. 56% called and texted. So cell and texted. So that's this. So if I go 56 minus 12, we get 44. So we're kind of almost there. So now you can kind of see we can figure out this last bit, because if I want to figure out, let's say, what's left over here, well, I know that this whole circle is 66. So if I go 66 minus 14 minus 12 minus 6, the leftover bit should be this stuff over here. So let's just do that. So 66 minus those three things, and that's going to be 4. Okay, and then over on this side with the texting, if I go 76, because that's that whole circle, so 76 minus 44 minus 12 minus 7, we get 13. And then the bottom one here, this whole circle, the networking one, is 34. Was it? Yeah, 34. So 34 minus 6 minus 12 minus 7 would give me the leftover. So that's going to be 9. Okay, now the last part here says what percentage of students didn't use any form of communication. So how many are like outside the box over here? So the way we can figure that is we know that percentage is out of 100, right? So as soon as you see that it's written in percentage, think about your universal set, or all of it. It must be 100, right? It must be 100 that it's out of. So I'm just going to go 100 minus whatever all these numbers inside the boxes add up to, should be what's left outside the box. Or outside the circles, I should say, sorry. So if you add up now, just 4 plus 44 plus 13 plus 6 plus 12 plus 7 plus 9, and then go 100 minus that, you should get what's left over. And all those things added together, you should get 95. So what's left over is going to be just 5. So there should be 5 outside the box there. So that's who didn't use any form of communication. You can tell this is old because I bet you there's not even 5% of people that wouldn't use at least one of them. Okay, next one. It says, use the following clues to determine the missing information. It says 28 children with pets. So with pets, we're asked what kind they have. So one little... Here, I'm going to put the names in the circles here. So we got dog, we got cat, and we got bird. B down the bottom. One little helpful hint of information here, though, is it says 28 children, and they have pets. So there's going to be none outside, so you can kind of get that from reading, right? There's all of them at least have a pet because everybody that was surveyed had a pet. So that's one kind of helpful bit of information. Now we just need to go through our hints here. So again, what I would do to make things a little easier, do a little bracket. Dogs are going to be 13, that whole circle. Cats, 13. And birds, 13. Now it says 4 have a dog and a cat, and not a bird. So 4 have a dog and a cat, but not a bird. So what is that? So dog and a cat would be that one, but not a bird. So not this one. So what we have is just up here. So that is 4. So I can put a 4 in there now. So I can say that's 4. The next one down, 3 have a dog and a bird and not a cat. Okay, so let's go dog, bird. That would be that whole spot, right? But not a cat. So that's just this part there. 2 have a cat and a bird, but not a dog. So look at the cat, look at the bird one. That would be that one, but not the dog. So that's just this one. Now, number 1 says, how many children have all 3? So we're looking for this middle section. And not going to lie, there's no great way to do this that's just really simple. You could do trial and error with a few numbers. So, like, put a number in here. Let's say, like, 1, and then figure out what these numbers were. And then see if it adds up. So make sure that this circle is 13. This circle is, all adds up to 13. And this one all adds up to 13. And you could just do it that way, like trial and error. It might be easier for some of you. I'm going to show you how to do it algebraically, though, too, if you want to figure out how to figure out that missing value here, that x value. And the way that we're going to do that is using the principle of inclusion and exclusion. So what I mean by that, remember when we had 2 circles and they overlapped? What we said is that if you add up the area of the first circle with the area of the second circle, you don't quite get the union of these 2 things, right? You don't quite get, like, just the whole thing together because we've counted that middle section twice, right? That's what's happened is we've counted that middle section more than once. So what the principle of inclusion and exclusion would be there is you'd say the area of this one plus the area of this one minus the middle. And that would give you the union or the area of all of them, right? We're going to use that same type of concept, but with all 3. So kind of bear with me as we go through this. So let's say we're going to have, so it's going to be the number of elements. All of these are talking about the number of elements, right? So you put a little n in front of all of them now. So the number of elements of D plus the number of elements of C plus the number of elements of B. And so far, all I've got is just like adding up 13 plus 13 plus 13, right? That's kind of what that whole part would be in the end. Now, what's happened is if I do that, though, I've counted those middle areas too many times. So what I'm going to do is subtract the overlap of that one, the overlap of this one, and the overlap of this one. And the way that would look is going to be minus the number of elements of, well, I'll do this one first, D intersection B, right? That's this. That's the intersection of D and B. So I'm just subtracting that out. And then minus the number of elements of the next one. So that would just be D intersection C. And then minus, oh, so get that out of the way, minus number of elements of B intersection C. So now the last one, I just need to add to this though, is that if I did this, if I subtracted out all those, like, you know, places where they overlap, what would happen if I did that for all three is you'd then be missing the middle part. You'd then be missing where that X is going to be. Yeah, I can't really think of like a better way to explain that, but what you would actually have is like everything but that after you subtracted them all out. So what we need to do is say plus, so plus the number of elements in D union, sorry, not union, intersection, upside down, D intersection C intersection B. And all that means is that, you know, where they all intersect, right? Where D, C, and B all intersect. So that's just right in the middle. I'm just going through the actual, like, mathematical language here, too. Like, I know some of you might find this a little bit confusing, but it'll make more sense once we start putting numbers in here, too. But anyway, so that is the principle of inclusion and exclusion. But then let's say what it's equal to. So it's going to be equal to the union of all these things. So that's going to be equal to the number of elements of D union C union B. So that's going to be equal to just pretty much the area of all three of those together, like what we want. And we know what that is. That's 28. So we know what that number is. Okay, so let's start putting numbers in here. It'll make it easier. So number of elements in D was 13. Number of elements in C was 13. In B was 13. Now, this part here, what we're going to do, so D intersection B, that was this, right? That was right there. Well, that's 3 plus X. Hopefully that made sense. Now, we're going to say minus, now, number of elements in D intersection C, so D intersection C, that's going to be 4 plus X. So we'll go 4 plus X minus, oh yeah, not and. Now the last one was 2 plus X. So the last one there. 2 plus X. And then this thing that we added back, that was just the middle, right? That was X. So then we're just going to go plus X. And that's all equal to 28. Right? Because it says that everybody has pets here. So the union of all three of those things is 28. Just told us that right in the question. So now we just have some algebra to do. So if you add these three things together, we've got 39. Now distribute the negative into that one and into that one. We're going to have minus 3 minus X. This one's going to be minus 4 minus X. And then minus 2 minus X. And then plus X is equal to 28. Now we just need to collect our like terms. So if I look at these two here, I've got negative X plus X. Well, they just cancel each other, so we can just cross those off. And then what we'd be left with, we've got 39 minus 3, so that'd be 36. Minus 4, 32. Minus 2, so 30. So we're going to have 30 with the numbers. And then negative X and negative X, that would be negative 2X or minus 2X is equal to 28. If I subtract 30 from both sides, I've got negative 2x is equal to negative 2. If you divide by negative 2 on both sides, we get x is equal to 1. So we figured it out algebraically. That x there, that is 1. Hopefully you guys did all right with that. I know doing it this method's probably one of the tougher things that it's going to be in this unit. So don't freak out if you like really had a hard time with this. It's not going to make or break how well you do in this unit, I wouldn't say. Okay, so now it says how many children have or only have one pet. So really it's asking like this plus this plus this, right? How many just have a dog or just have a cat or just have a bird? So add all those together. So what we just need to do is go, well, 13 minus 4 minus 1 minus 3. That's going to give us this. And then 13 minus 4 minus 1 minus 2. That would give us this. And then 13 minus 3 minus 1 minus 2. And that would give us that. And if you do that, this one would be 5. This would be 6. And this would be 7. Okay, so then to figure out how many only have 1, that would just be 5 plus 6 plus 7. So you're going to have 20. So just as we looked back on this, though, like I was saying, if you had a question like this and you just for the life of you couldn't figure out what that middle number was, what you could have done was just go through some numbers, fill it in like more of like a guess and check type of a thing. So you could have done it that way as well. So I just wanted to show you how you could do it algebraically too. Okay, now we got another tougher one. Says a study was made of 200 students to determine what TV shows they watched. So it says 22 students don't watch these cartoon shows. Well, first off, let's like write down what our circles mean. So Tiny Toons, let's write that up here. So Tiny Toons. These are probably all cartoons you guys have never heard of too. They're more my generation. So Tiny Toons. Animaniacs. So it'd be A. And then Pinky and the Brain. So Pinky and the Brain down here. Pinky and the Brain were actually part of the Animaniacs series. Okay, so right off the bat it says 22 students don't watch these cartoons, so 22 would be down here, right? Not involved in it. So right off the bat, what I do know though is that the union of all these things, well, that must be 200 minus 22. So that must be, if you wanted to just put like a big thing over the whole thing like that, so you remind yourself, this would be 178 for like all three of those circles, or the union of those circles. That might be helpful later. This says 73 students watch only Tiny Toons. So only Tiny Toons, we could put that number in because that means this is going to be 73. Only Tiny Toons, none of the other ones. 136 students watch Tiny Toons. So that's going to be the entire circle. So if you wanted to, you could put a little thing on the side to remind yourself that this is going to be 136 for that whole circle. 14 students watch only Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. So Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and only that, not Tiny Toons. That's got to be this one. So I can fill that one in right now too. So we can fill that in as 14. And then 31 students watch only Tiny Toons and Pinky and the Brain. Okay, so that's got to be this one. 31. Only Tiny Toons and Pinky and the Brain. So not Animaniacs. Can't be in there too. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at so far. And 63 students watch Animaniacs. So if you wanted to here, we could do our little thing on the side there and say, okay, this is 63. Okay, so that's kind of the information that we've been given up front, and now this is the puzzle. This is we got to kind of figure out how we can figure out some of these other circles by just pretty much subtracting or adding certain things together. There's probably more ways to do it than one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out this part here first. And the way that we can do that is that I can figure out this everything else, like everything but this up here. So we'll do that. I can figure out all of this, the union of Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. I can figure that out if I go 63 plus 73 plus 31. Right? That's going to be that whole spot. That's going to give me that whole thing. Then if I go 178 minus that, I'd be left with this. So that's going to be helpful if I can do that. So let's just over here, I'm going to write down 63 plus 73 plus 31. So that is 167, right? So this whole top part up here now, I know that everything but this up there is equal to 167. So now if I go 78, which I know is all of it, right, the whole thing, and subtract this, that which is 167, so 178 minus 167, I get 11. So I can now add that one to my table. I know that this is 11. Okay, so one part done. Let's see if we can figure something else out here now. Well, now again, if I kind of look at all of this over here, so that whole thing, if I could figure that out, then I could go 178 minus that, and I'd be left with this. So then I could figure out the Animaniacs, just Animaniacs one. So how, can I do that? Well, yeah, 136, remember, is this whole circle. It's that whole thing, right? So if I go 136 plus 11 plus 14, that's going to tell me that whole thing. So let's do that. So 136 plus 11 plus 14. And that is 161. So 161. So now if I take 178, which is all of it, right? Three of them, and subtract this, I'm going to be left with this. So let's go 178 minus 161. And we get 17. So I know that this part here now is 17. All right, we're almost there. Okay, now the last one here says 135 students do not watch Pinky and the Brain. So the ones that, well, let's just maybe circle what Pinky and the Brain would be. Pinky and the Brain would be all of this one, right? So it's saying 135 students are everything but that. So that'd be 73, whatever this one is, 17, and don't forget about the ones that aren't watching any. That also counts too. So those four numbers are going to add up to 135. So if I go 135 and subtract these three numbers, I'll end up with this. So let's do that. So we'll go, let's use that color. So 135 minus 73 minus 17 minus 22. That's going to equal 23. All right. We've done the hard bit. The last one here is easy now. So this is 23. Now finding this last one, there's a few ways to do that. You could look at a bunch of different things. But I'll just look over here and say, okay, 136 is that whole circle. So if I go 136 minus 73 minus 23 minus 31, I'll be left with this. So 136 minus 73 minus 23 minus 31 is equal to 9. So this is 9. All right. Hopefully you guys were able to follow that. I know that's it's definitely a tough logic puzzle. So for this last one, that's the last one, right? Yeah. I'll kind of set it up for you, or kind of help you get it set up, and then I'm going to stop and let you guys finish it. So it says 150 people at a Van Halen concert were asked if they knew how to play piano, drums, or guitar. So let's go piano, drums, and guitar. Okay, 18 people could play none of these instruments. So I know 18's going down in the corner or outside the circles. They can't play any of them. So that's also implying to me, though, that I could make a little thing going over all three, like it's implied that it's all three. If I go 150 minus 18, that would tell me all three, like the union of all three. So we've got 132 people that play, you know, the union of those three different things. Okay, so that we got that one. 10 people could play all three of these instruments. That's going to be helpful. We have our middle one, right? So all three. I can put that one down right now. That's 10. 77 people could play drums or guitar, but not play piano. So drums, guitar. Oh, just wait and make sure you look at the words here. 77 people could play drums. It doesn't say and, it says or. We need to be careful of that. Maybe like when you see and or, circle them, underline them, put a circle or a square around it, just because it is important, right? So 77 people could play drums or guitar. That's the union. So the union of drums and guitar would originally be, all of this, right? Where those two intersect. But it says the next part says but could not play piano. So it's only going to be this part, everything but piano. All of that is 77 is what it's saying. Okay, so let's just kind of keep that in mind for a minute. Let's move on. So let's go 73 people could play guitar. So let's maybe put a little thing on the bottom there to say 73 for that circle could play guitar. 49 could play at least two of these instruments. Okay, so what does that mean now? 49 could play at least two of these instruments? Well, if you think about it, the areas here, here, and here, that would only be being able to play one instrument, right? So at least two instruments is everything in the middle. So it's that area. That's going to be at least two instruments. So it's saying that's 49. Okay, it says 13 people could play piano and guitar. So that would piano and guitar would be that, but not drums. So that's good. That's going to tell us we know one of them now. This is going to be 13. 21 people could play piano and drums. So piano and drums, that would be this area. So piano and drums. And that's going to be helpful too, because if I go 21 minus 10, which I know is the middle, that's going to give me this. So I know this must be 11. And hey, looking back on what we had earlier, remember I said one of those things was going to be this whole area? Well, that's going to be helpful because I've got three of them. I just need to find the last one. So if I look up there, that was that at least two instruments. So if I go 49 minus those three things, I should be left with this one. So let's go 49 minus 11 minus 10 minus 13. You get 15. So this would be 15. Okay, and we're on our way. So let's kind of go back to these things and see if we kind of can make sense of a bit more now. So looking back at the top, 18 people could play none of these instruments. Yeah, okay. 10 people could play all three. We used that. 77 people could play drums or guitar, but not play piano. Ooh, I think I found the one we need. So 73 people could play guitar. Okay, well that's good, because 73, looking at the bottom there, the whole thing is 73, so if I subtract 13, 10, and 15, I'll be left with this. So let's go 73 minus 13 minus 10 minus 15. You get 35. So this is 35. So only two more to do. Now, the next one that I think is going to be helpful was this 77, this one up here. So 77 could play drums or guitar, but not play piano. And we figured before that that was this whole area, right? From there to there. That was that one. So if we just subtract 35 and 15, we'll be left with that. So let's go 77 minus 35. Oh, that should be a 5. Minus 15. We get 27. So this one up here, now we know, is 27. Oh, I said I was going to let you guys do it, didn't I? Oh well, I did this one for you. Yeah, so next time. Now the last one here, how can we figure out that? Well, we know the whole thing is 132. We already did that, right? So if we go 132 and then just subtract all of these things, we're going to be left with this. So if you do that, we end up getting 21. So this in the end would be 21. Okay, so hopefully you guys can do all right on this. It really is practice because once you kind of get the hang of doing a few, you kind of get little tricks of what you need to do for the next one. So I'm going to end that video there. Sorry for it being long. I wanted to really make sure that you can kind of see my thought process as we went through these. So yeah, that's going to be it for that one.